Hi. So the topic is simple storage service in AWS. So the subtopics which we are going to cover in this section are AWS cloud storage services. So we will briefly take a look at which services are provided, which cloud storage services are provided by AWS. Then what is a simple storage service, that is S3. We will be going to look at that point. Then we will be going to look at the features or competencies of simple storage service, and going into the technical aspect, deep diving into this. We will be going to see what are buckets and what are objects. Then last but not the least, we will be going to visit the types of S3 storage classes, and in which scenario, in which use case you will be using which S3 storage class. So moving on, what are the various cloud storage services that are provided by the AWS? As we can see, as we have learned that there are three foundational aspects of AWS, that is compute, storage, and networking. So the storage aspect we are learning here, and some of the basic services which are provided by AWS is that S3, EBS, that is Elastic Block Storage Service. Then you have Elastic File Systems Service. Then you have Glacier Storage Gateway, Snowball Edge, and Snowmobile. So these all services are used with respect to use cases, with respect to requirements. Suppose you are using EBS, so the requirement of EBS will slightly vary, or may more vary than the requirement of Glacier. So it is not the case that if you are using Glacier service, then the use case for Glacier service is quite different than that of EBS, and with respect to each and every service, it may vary. So these are the basic cloud storage services. Now, what is S3? Simple storage service provided by AWS. This service allows you, this service gives you a facility to store your files, to store your data, or your information in the form of objects. So in a kind, S3 or in a kind, AWS treats your data, treats your file with like an object. So a file can be your any PNG file, image file, PNG, JPEG, whatever, whichever image file you want to store, you can store. You have this video file. Yeah. So you have some video files you can store, you have audio files you can store, you have documents you can store. So if you want to store these kinds of files, and this is a vaguely speaking file, that means apart from this, any type of file you can store in Amazon S3. So by using Amazon S3 service. So Amazon S3 service is treating that particular file as an object, right? And you can store and you can recover any amount of objects via the internet and over any period of time. So virtually you have unlimited space, and as AWS goes by the model of pay as you go, and you can use any amount of, you have virtually unlimited amount of space, and you can go by the pay as you go model. So the more you use, the more you have to pay less. So what are the competencies of S3? Durability. So S3 goes by the statement that you have 11 nines of durability. By meaning 11 nines of durability, we mean that if you are, suppose there is a scenario that you are storing around 1 billion objects, right? So if you are storing around 1 billion objects, and you are storing about 100 years. So if you are storing 1 billion objects for 100 years, there is a possibility that a single object might go missing after 100 years. Then this is a possibility. So 11 nines of durability means that in a single statement, if I have to shorten it, that if you are storing 1 billion objects for 100 years, there is a chance that only a single object might be lost, might be missed, or might be corrupted at the end of the 100th year. So that is a very durable of S3. Low cost, again, as I said, that if you are using more, you have to pay less. So AWS provides a very nominal cost for this, and we will be looking at in the later section that how the costing is done. Then you have scalability. That means if you want to if you want to scale up your storage, if you want to use more of a storage, and the runtime requirement is more, then you can scale also, and it is very easy. So it is because pay as you go model is being implemented. Therefore, you can scale up your application, scale up your bucket, uh, uh, which we will learn in later stage of the scenario of this particular topic. Then you have availability. You, according to the S3 storage classes, again I have to mention here that according to the storage class, the availability for your object will be decided on that particular storage class. So there are many storage classes, and around six storage classes are there. So according to that storage class, that availability will be discovered. Then security, by default, you have this facility of SSE, that is server side encryption. That means as soon as you upload your object on using S3 service on AWS server, the security point of view is taken care of, and you have secure server side encryption. So the objects are stored in the encrypted form in on the server side. Flexibility, that means if you are storing an object, you can delete an object in a very easy manner. So AWS provides an very easy options of that you can store as well as you can delete the objects as per your demand. Then inbound data transfers and output data transfers are very simple. That is why this is a major competency of S3. Moving on and going on to the technical aspect of S3. So what is bucket and what is an object? So if we look at bucket, so bucket can be said as directories, or you can say bucket as a folder in which you are going to keep your file, and your files are acting as the objects. So objects are those files which we discussed earlier, that a file can be in the form of JPEG image, a file can be in the form of a video, an audio, or your Excel sheet or PDF, anything, any file. You can you if you when you are storing using S3 service, acts as an object for that S3 service. So these objects are stored in the bucket. So you will eventually create a bucket, and in that bucket we will be going to store the files, or as the S3 says, objects. Now, one major thing which we have to see here is that a bucket must have a globally unique name. That means if you, when at the time of creation of a bucket, AWS guides you that the name which you are giving to that bucket is global or not, and it gives you a warning if it is not. And so in that case, you will change that name. And when we are going to when we will be going on to the hands-on lab assignment, lab session, we will be seeing that also. Next, you have to be very careful that the buckets which we are making, which you are making, would be at the region level. That means a bucket which is being made is will be operating at a region level. So for one region, one bucket will be operating. And last but not the least, you have to be very careful about the naming convention also. That means your bucket cannot have an uppercase letter. It cannot have an underscore. It must have 3 to 63 characters only. So it cannot be of 2 characters, and we will see when we will be creating a bucket. It must not be in the form of an IP, like it must not be in the form of a dotted decimal notation, and it must start with a lowercase letter or a number. So you cannot have any uppercase in your bucket name, no underscore, 3 to 63 characters long, according to the convention, no IP, not an IP name, dotted decimal notation will not work here, and it must start with lowercase letter or a number. Again, an object is a file and any metadata. Metadata means data about data. So I will discuss in detail this when we go on to, again, when we create a bucket that describes that file. That means an object is a file or any metadata. That means it can be a data about data. It can be a file that describes about it. And a maximum object size in S3 service is 5 TB, roughly 5000 GB, not to be specific here. So 5 terabytes of object size is the maximum use. That means a single object can be up to 5 terabytes. And if you are uploading, now this is a very major point, that if you are uploading more than 5 gigabytes of information or your data or file, you must use multi-part upload. So multi-part upload means that you are uploading that particular object in pieces or in parts, which eventually helps you in keeping up the throughput, because you are not transferring that whole object in a single go. Also, it helps you in maintaining latency, which is low latency, and also it helps you in recovering your object. So if suppose by chance any network failure occurs, or any failures, any geographical demographic failure occurs, you can recover your object if you are using this multi-part upload facility. So types of storage classes, you have around 6 storage classes, that is S3 standard, S3 standard infrequent access, S3 intelligent tiering, one zone infrequent access, S3 glacier, and S3 glacier deep archive. So we will discuss in this in detail when once we create an object, and once we create a bucket and then upload an object, and I will be discussing that on the while we are concluding our laboratory session. So moving on to a laboratory session, if you can see, this is the console panel, and you can also see that my region is Mumbai, right? So if you want to change the region, you can also change the region, but this does not matter. I'm just giving you an overview that because I have recently visited all these services, therefore it is showing here. You have if you have not visited any of the services, it will not show you. This panel, this particular tab will be empty. So if this particular tab is empty, you have two options to access S3. First of all, you can go to the services, and you can scroll down here, and you can see that S3 service is being highlighted here. So this is the first way to access your S3 service. Next way is you can go to search panel and you can type S3 there, and you can see that you have S3 services coming up. So you can click that S3 service, and another panel or another tab will open, and you have a single option here in this particular panel of creating a bucket. But you can also go from the left of this panel, and you can select the buckets access points, object level access points. From here you can select, if you want to create a bucket, you can select bucket. So I'm going to create bucket from this particular option. So when I click the create bucket, I will have to set some certain rules regarding buckets. I have to give the bucket name, I have to give the tag value. So we will discuss it here now. So first information is that you have to provide a bucket name. So in my case, I am giving my bucket, or I can say I can give my student bucket, my student DB bucket. I want to give this name. Okay, so I am taking care of the conventions that my student DB bucket, the name which I am giving to bucket is that it must not contain any capital letter. It must be 3 to 63 characters long. So it is more than 2 characters, and I have taken care of that. Next, you have to decide your region. So again, this region and this particular region is not does not matter, but you have to provide the region in which region you want to create that bucket. So for the sake of simplicity, I am giving the region as Asia Pacific Mumbai AP South 1, and you can create a bucket in any region. So if you have some existing bucket already created, you can copy the settings of that existing bucket, but it is an optional option. And since we are creating first bucket, so we don't have any other bucket of which I can copy the settings into this particular bucket. So I will not choose any bucket as of now. Then you have a very major point, that is object ownership. That means who all can access this bucket. Okay, so this particular object ownership provides you to control the ownership of the objects returned to this particular bucket. So when you are uploading the file, when you are uploading anything, you can decide here that which account or which particular person or which particular entity can access that particular bucket. So ACLs stand for access control list, which by default we are you know keeping it in disable option, and that is recommended for this particular lab session. Another important setting which you have to take care of is that you have to block public access uh, to your bucket for as of now. We are doing this because if I enable this option, that means I am making this bucket eventually private, and I can upload any amount of objects in that particular bucket. And if I want to use another options, I have another 4 options. That is, I can block public access to buckets and objects granted through new access control list. I have this option. I can check this I can check this also, which goes by the name of block public access to buckets and objects granted through any access control list. So I have to attach the policy along with this bucket, but for now I'm not doing this. I am blocking all the public access. Then you have another setting also, that you can block public access to buckets and objects granted through new public bucket or access point policy, and through any public bucket or access point policy. So for now we are blocking all the public access because we are just creating a bucket. Next, one of the major point is bucket versioning, but for this lab, we are not focusing on bucket versioning. Bucket versioning basically helps you to preserve, retrieve, and restore every version of every object which you are storing in the bucket. So eventually, if suppose one of the availability zones go down, so bucket versioning option helps you to preserve, retrieve, and restore each version of your particular object. So it can happen that you are uploading a single file more than one time because that file has changed more than one time. So versioning will allow you to preserve or retrieve or restore each and every version of your file which you have uploaded throughout till date. So we are disabling that particular aspect. We are not going into that. Then you have a very interesting option called tags. Now what tags help you in with is that they help you to track the storage cost and organize the bucket. These are the two major points for which you use tags. So in my case, I can use a tab. I can give a key name called db, and I can give the value as student. So you can create more than one tag, but tags help you to track storage cost, that which particular bucket is being used more, which particular bucket is being used by which particular process more. So in order to organize your bucket, in order to organize your storage cost, and you in order to track your storage cost, you can provide a tag. So I am providing a tag here. Default encryption option is there, in which I have already said that you have SSE option enabled, that is server side encryption is already enabled. That means by default, when you are uploading the files, when you are uploading that particular, any file you are uploading, that is encrypted by itself. So for now, we are going with the encryption key type, that is Amazon S3 by default. Managed keys, that is server side encryption is. You can also use Amazon Web Services key management service key, but for now we are not going into that. Then you have advanced settings. You have object lock facility. That means write once, read many worm model, which helps you to prevent objects from being deleted or overwritten for a fixed amount of time or indefinitely. Suppose a software developer has deleted that particular object by mistake. So worm model provides you to lock that object, and it works only on the version buckets. So since we have disabled the version, we are not going into this particular advanced setting option. So I will now click create bucket, and we will see a short message that my bucket has been successfully created. So my student DB bucket has been created successfully, and you can see on the screen that this particular bucket has been created. So there are many options. As I select this, as I select this bucket, I can see that my bucket has been created in the AWS region, that is Mumbai. And if I create this, if I click this particular bucket, you can see I have 6 different options. I will not go into each option as for now. I am just interested in uploading some files in this particular bucket. So for that, I can either create a folder, as you can see on my screen, or I can upload. Right. So as my bucket is empty, I want to upload some objects, and if I click upload, I have another settings option. I have to provide some settings, and I have to provide the files, or I can also provide some folders, right? So if I want to provide some files, I can go on to the add files option, and I can click that, and you can see I have some files. I can upload this file. I can I have uploaded a PDF file. If I want to add more files, if I want to diversify my file uploading options, I can upload a video file. So this is my MP4 file. This is of 7.9 MB, and this is my PDF file. I have uploaded this. So as for now, these are in the these are showing, these have come into the category of files and folders option. So I don't want to change any of these properties, and I just want to upload them. Basic uploading operation is going on, and you can see that on the screen that these files are getting uploaded. So when this uploading is completed, you can see that it has been succeeded. So as I click close, I can see that my both the files have been uploaded in this particular my student DB bucket. So if you want to delete this, as I said, that it is flexible, and if you want to delete both the files, you can just check out that, just check the checkbox with which are in front of them, and you can delete as for now. So this was the basic operations which we performed. We just created my student DB bucket, and we just uploaded two different diverse files into that. So now moving on, if I if I go into the bucket and if I go into the uh, upload option, I want to just discover the various other options in. I'm just uploading a single file, and I just want to just want to discover, just want to showcase that which options are available under the storage class. So as you can see in the properties section, when I uploaded a file, I have this various options, this various storage classes. So first storage class is standard, which is if you are having a data which you are frequently accessing, that is more than once in a month. So if you want the millisecond access, you are good to go with the standard option, and your data will be will be copied or will be stored in more than 3 availability zones, right? So you can see that under the minimum storage duration, there is no limit. You can store as much time as you want. Minimum billable object size, there is nothing in that also under that heading, and there is no auto tiering or monitoring fees or any retrieval fees. So you can retrieve your object as many times as you want in a month, and you can retrieve it within the millisecond. Next is intelligent tiering. Intelligent tiering, if you it is designed for the data with changing or unknown access pattern. So if you don't know that how much time your data is being accessed, or how in future you don't know that, okay, at this particular month I am not sure whether my file or my data is being accessed for more than a particular amount of time of which I am calculating. So you can use this intelligent tiering pattern also, this storage class also. So again, your data is replicated in more than 3 availability zones. And the problem with this, not the problem, as per the under the heading, that monitoring and auto tiering fees is applicable if your object is greater than 128 kb. So if your object is greater than or equals to 128 kb, this auto tiering and monitoring fees is applied. If your object is less than that particular size, then no charges are applicable. Again, moving on to next option, that is standard infrequent access. That means you are infrequently accessing the data item, that is once a month, but you have to have within, if you want to access the data item within milliseconds, then this option is very good option, standard infrequent access. Now the major excuse me, major heading under minimum storage duration is that the object must be stored for 30 days, and minimum billable size is 128 kb, and retrieval fees, when you are retrieving that object, the retrieval fees will be per GB fee supply. So going on to the next option, that is you have one zone infrequent access. Now the major difference between one zone and standard infrequent access is that you have only one zone in which your data is kept. Okay, so your data is not in more than one availability zone, it is only kept in one zone. So if you are very sure that you are not going to access, if you have a data which you are not going to access frequently, you can use this one zone infrequent access. Next, you have glacier instant retrieval. That means this particular option is best if you have some data which you want to archive, which you want to which you are not using in 3 to 4 months, like you have long lived archive data accessed only once a quarter with instant retrieval. If you want after a quarter but with instant retrieval, then you can go for glacier instant retrieval option. Your data is being replicated in more than 3 availability zones. The major condition is that your data must be kept for 90 days at least. Minimum billable object size is 128 kb, and again per GB apply is being ensured on the billing section. Next, you have Glacier Flexible Retrieval, that means formerly Glacier, in which if you are sure that you are only accessing that data for in a year, and you are ready to wait for minutes or until hours to access the data, so you can go with this option also. Again, more than three availability zones. The minimum duration storage is 90 days, and then per GB fees is supply. So here the major difference is that there is no minimum billable object size and there is no monitoring and auto tiering fees. You can use this particular facility in this case condition. Then you have Glacier Deep Archive, in which you know you have you are sure that your data is being not being accessed in a year, and if you are ready to wait for hours or days to retrieve that particular data and to use that, then Glacier Deep Archive is the best option. Again, more than three availability zones, minimum duration is 180 days, and per GB fees is applicable. And last but not the least, reduced redundancy. This is a very non-critical, frequently accessed data in million, but it is not recommended because you have the standard option, and it is recommended that you use a standard option only. Right. So these are the storage classes which you are, which you can use, which you can decide. Yeah, I'm going to leave this. Which you can decide when accessing or using the S3 storage service. So I hope S3 storage service is now clear to you. Thank you.